vast majority of successful dental assistants have that at their core. That's who they are. They're there to be helpers, encouragers, healers, bringers of goodness. You are an important driver of patient understanding, patient education, patient goodwill, trust. Trust is $1 million word, a multi-million-dollar word for the owners of the practice. Work ethic is something that they are absolutely born with or raised with.
Hey everyone, Kevin Henry, the founder of Dental Assistant Nation, and so glad you joined us for another episode of the Dental Assistant Nation podcast. Wanted to introduce you all to a friend of mine that I've interacted with for a while now on LinkedIn, and we finally met each other at the Chicago Midwinter meeting. That is Dr. Mark Thorson. Dr. Thorson, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Kevin. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. I look forward to a conversation today.
Hey, me too. I live in northern Colorado. You're in Wyoming, so I consider you a neighbor. I
Yes,
hope
sir.
that's all right. So please tell our audience a little bit more about you, if you don't mind, before we dive into the topics today.
Certainly. I'm a retired clinician, had a general practice 100 years ago, and I've also had a professional sales career in dentistry. I'm an entrepreneur in terms of creating a device, which I love to talk about if we get a chance. I also train dental assistants privately. I've been doing it for many, many years in various states. Now, Wyoming is our home, and so we have been doing this for about 18 months in Wyoming. Definitely a passion project for me. We have a very creative format. I'll be happy to discuss in some detail, but on the weekends is when we train, and people can have their lives while they're transitioning into dentistry to become new professionals. One of my proudest professional moments is to be able to say that my students right now are numbers 106 and 107 of my dental assisting training career over many years. It's a private program. We run it when we choose. We don't saturate our local market, which I could certainly talk about. And so I'll leave it at that. But dentistry has been my vocation and occasionally my avocation.
Well, and thank you for putting dental assistants back into the market, because goodness knows we need those right now. Tell our audience a little bit about where you are in Wyoming, because I want to talk, and then I'm going to ask you about the challenges of getting dental assistants in a rural area, not only to work in a practice, but also to join this great profession that we have.
Yeah, we are in Gillette, Wyoming, northeast Wyoming, beautiful coal country, the energy capital of the United States. Everybody's very proud of that. The energy business is still hanging in there, doing fine. Wyoming is wide open for innovation, and that's a huge amount of effort being put toward that. In terms of innovation in education, our private career school, is fully licensed by the Wyoming Department of Education. We confer a certificate of completion. In Wyoming, there's no law that requires a credential to take a job as a dental assistant. It hasn't been forever. So for many, many years, dentists have been hiring people off the street, friends of friends, people out of the church congregations, school classmates, basically positive attitude and some semblance of a work ethic. Now, without getting too deep into the boomer side of that equation, we've learned to meet people where they are, because young people these days cannot be condescended to. They cannot be talked down. They cannot be shamed into a work ethic. It just doesn't happen. And that's one of the major challenges that we find not only in the rural atmosphere, but everywhere. And dentistry across the board is having difficulty with similar situations as far as career longevity. How long does a new dental assistant stick? Statistics will show 2 to 4 years or so before they move on in one direction or another. But one of the challenges we have, and that I believe we're succeeding in our rural environment, is opening up the doors to the career path that dental assisting brings. Many people have huge assumptions about dentistry in general. You're very well aware of that, as is your audience. Is it supposed to hurt? Is it supposed to take a long time? Is it supposed to be super expensive? Oh no. All these objections come up immediately. Most of those, in terms of the professional world that we operate in as clinicians, are based on supposition, or what a trusted elder has said. Don't let him do this to you. Don't let him hurt you. A grandparent dropping off a small child, believe it or not, dropping off a small child. One of my personal experiences in my clinical career out in Oregon was grandma drops off little boy and shouts to the little boy as he's sitting in the lobby. Grandma's leaving the practice altogether and says, "Don't let him rip your teeth out."
Oh, geez. Wow.
Now, fortunately, that's one time. That's a very small experience, but that is absolutely not alone. And that spectrum of lack of trust, lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, which breeds these things. I don't want to go too deeply into that. That's not 100% relevant, but that's what makes it difficult for people to enter the profession just as well
Mm-hmm.
or equally because they think that I'm going to be hurting people all day. I'm
Right.
going to be, quote, ripping people's teeth out all day, which is absolutely wrong. They don't understand the realities, which is where we are attempting to go and stand there in front of them and show them the great parts of the reality of dentistry as a profession.
So if they've got this perception in their head, let's just
Mm-hmm.
say, and you're already in a rural area, shall we say, that is there aren't a lot of people to choose from, which
Right.
is not a bad thing at all, but it's a reality.
Yeah.
What are they bringing to your school, and why are they coming to you to say, I want to learn how to be a dental assistant? Or how are you telling them you
Mm-hmm.
should come here and let us show you why dental assisting is such a great career?
Thank you. The second part of your question is what I'll answer first. I can't speak why people come to me
Okay.
other than in response to our marketing, which is online, it's live, it's job fairs, it is going into dental practices and leaving materials. We approach them by telling them, as I mentioned a moment ago, here's what you can actually do. Are you aware what's possible? And yes, you start out at the bottom. You need to start out at the bottom. And what's the bottom? So let's try to avoid the connotation of somehow that being bad. But the learning starts, and with Wyoming Professional Training's dental assistant course, taught by yours truly, I will teach you the language of dentistry. I will teach you medical terminology, but dental terminology. I will teach you about the procedures and the fact that humans come to dentists when their mouth is broken, that perception, pain, malfunction, difficulty, etc.
Hmm.
You have to be aware of that. That's not a specific skill you have to pick up. The vast majority of successful dental assistants have that at their core. That's who they are. They're there to be helpers, encouragers, healers, bringers of goodness, and then they get my skills on top of that. I can't speak for all of dentistry, but I can tell you I know what I'm talking about. You're not questioning that. But the ability for them to absorb our materials, which are absolutely base of the pyramid, and I don't make any claims other than that, because all the doctors that hire our students, and I will absolutely boast that in 18 months, every single one of my graduates has been hired. Thank you
Nice.
very much.
Nice.
Doctors have different ways of approaching what is restorative dentistry. How do we do it? So understanding the concepts, here's what will happen. You got to have a filling in a tooth at the end. Okay. But the computer work, what's the software for handling the radiographic images? Is what brand is that? There are dozens. And so it makes no sense for me to attempt to teach what Dexis does compared to what Schick does and who owned Schick and why does Patterson sell that one, but Benco sells the other one. None
Yep.
of that is even spoken of. So the concepts, but handling the instruments, instrument anatomy, if you will, and the variables in what is a number 5 Explorer and how is that different from a shepherd's hook? It's not. Okay, in the surgical instruments, all the huge variety. I've sold surgical instruments. There's thousands of those individual pieces. I tell them that, and the textbook that we use is very, very high level, very good. So I can speak to the experienced realities that go along with all these points. And over the years, I've learned not to tell only stories. I can tell stories all day, but stories help information to stick. You know this as well. Anybody that's a clinician or attempting to persuade, for example, a patient that the recommended care is good for you and will be the best result because. Let me
Yep.
tell you a story about Joe Smith who said no and wanted to save a few bucks, but later we wound up having to spend a lot of more root canal, crown, whatever. Storytelling matters, but it's not the only bread and butter. Work ethic is something that they are absolutely born with or raised with. Again, I have to absolutely tiptoe tightrope around that topic. And the way I do it is to simply say that when you show up every day, your doctor keeps paying you. And the more you keep showing up and the more you show your employers and your teammates that you're taking part in this effort, you understand the vision that's being put in front of you, and you are an important driver of patient understanding, patient education, patient goodwill, trust. We doctor types who sit at the chair, we do a procedure, we get them numb. Sometimes we don't get them numb every time. We talk about the technologies, we talk about what's actually going on in your mouth right now, Mrs. Jones, and here's what we're going to do. And then we do it. And then we leave. And DAs are handed the responsibility for the paperwork, the verifications at the end. And now, and there's no other way to say this, clinicians will understand me perfectly, as will your DA crowd.
Hmm.
When the doctor leaves, the gloves snap off and go flawlessly into the hole on the counter every time.
Always.
The patient looks up at them and says, "What did he just say?" She,
Yep.
he, and it's on the DAs to say, here's what that means. And that builds value, that builds trust, that builds understanding. And your patient wants to come back next time to do the next step in the treatment plan, partly because of you, dental assistant, partly because of you. They relate to you. You don't scare them. And it would be important for DAs to learn to ask if you're comfortable right now.
Mhm.
Did we get you numb? Okay. It'll wear off in how many hours, whatever. And I want you to know, Mr. Jones patient, that if you have pain tonight, it's probably pretty normal for whatever values and variables and all that stuff. But if you hurt more, or if there's a spot where you don't think that it should be, you got to say something.
Yeah.
And it's even okay for you to call and ask for me, the DA should say. That's taking a part in this process. Yes, doctor's in charge. Yes, doctor has all the responsibility. He, she is going to be the one who gives definitive answers. Awesome. And they should be. That's what
Yep.
they're, you know, one doctor said, that's why I make the medium bucks, right? Uh,
But
but the DAs should be given responsibility for that.
and I'm really curious because you're not only teaching the clinical skills, but a lot of the soft skills as well, a lot of those
Exactly.
skills. And I will argue with so many people that it's those skills that are often the hardest to teach. I mean, I think our communication and that, like as you said, when the patient looks up and says, "Explain this to me," them having the confidence to do it is so often one of the key hurdles to getting comfortable who you are as a dental assistant.
Precisely. And to be able to intentionally and knowingly provide those answers for the purpose of improving the patient confidence. Yes, you're right. But also the patient trust. Trust is $1 million word, a multi-million-dollar word for the owners of the practice. Because the more trust they generate, the better off patients are, more likely the patients are going to be accept more care, all the care, and also to refer people. And when someone says, just to make a comparison, if they say in their experience buying tires at a new tire dealership in town, they can go online all day long and say, what a great experience. I trust them.
Hmm.
Cool. Good for them. Awesome. Every business wants to have that. In dentistry, there's pain involved. If your tire buying experience was not fun, you don't hurt at the end. Nobody throws stuff at you. You don't, wind up with your pockets full of old lug nuts. In dentistry, you walk away and sometimes you still have blood coming out of your mouth. There's ways to handle that. There's no known ahead of time. Awesome. But if you hurt and you don't say anything about it, it can't get better later. It just can't.
Hmm.
So that experience is what elevates dentistry or separates dentistry from the rest of quote retail. New patients these days are expecting more than a retail experience when they go for their very first clinical dental repairs or restorations. And many of them have had no clue, no care. Some of them may have had braces, but nobody gives shots in ortho. They don't even have syringes in orthodontics. The closest they get to pain control is take 2 ibuprofen when we're done. And bless them, someone's got to do it. But there's the need for these brand new patients who are wide open to giving trust, building trust, or smashing trust
Yeah.
because it somehow didn't work out. How am I doing with the question? Am I getting what you're looking for?
Yeah. And I just want to emphasize that building or smashing trust. I like that because it's a fine line, to be perfectly honest with you.
It
And
is.
I think sometimes we underestimate the value that there is in trust. You know, one thing that you and I were talking about at Chicago Midwinter is a product that you've come up with that I
Oh,
think
yeah.
is really, really cool.
Well,
And
thank you.
so take a minute, tell us about your product, and then I want to make sure you also tell people where they can learn more about what you're doing in Wyoming to help this next generation of dental assistants get out there.
That's awesome. Thank you. Well, the device is a matrix device, a class 2 restorative device intended to provide an alternative for bands, wedges, and ring clamps because those take too much time. They're too many pieces to handle, and they generally hurt patients. Patients want 3 things. Please do a really good job. Please do it very effectively and efficiently. And please don't hurt me.
Number three
Well,
is key.
the current systems work. I used them myself way back in the day when I was practicing. Thousands of fillings I put in using those methods. Why did I choose that? That's all there was. That's all they trained us with in dental school. And there had to be a better way for my purposes. So I went to all the efforts and I've got patents and I got a trademark and we're FDA 510K exempt, which is phenomenal. The device holds itself in place after the doctor cuts a class 2 prep on a single tooth. You can't use this with an open prep back to back. You can't do it both. So it has to be a hard proximal surface next door. Fine. A significant percentage of class 2 is done that way anyway. But it inflates with air and water pressure. And aside from attempting to do a demo by waving my arms, please go to inflatrix.com, inflatrix.com. We have a brand new demo video that's just going up, and it talks about how the device works. But the intent is for it to be a single device used once that is a polyurethane sandwich. It's stretchy. It goes between the teeth and then is inflated with air and water pressure from a small syringe that all doctors have. And then there's a little sliding clamp that locks the water and air in place. Then the restoration is placed as usual. It's a very low learning curve, very small. Nice. So please go check it out. I'm recruiting beta testers, those of you who are clinicians or want to pass it along to your dentist. I have a limited number of beta testers available, but we're open for pre-orders. I'm happy to talk to anybody. My systems allow for a half-hour conversation on Zoom or just make your request. But the website has it all, inflatrix.com. To finalize, Kevin, thank you for that opportunity. I'm really grateful for that. Yeah. And then in terms of how we're doing in beautiful Gillette with adding dental assisting to the Wyoming and regional world, primarily it's Wyoming because South Dakota has their own rules. Montana has their own rules. North Dakota different than everybody else. Yep. So we just have to play with it where we are. But I'm working on expanding my territory, not just working with Gillette doctors only, because there is a known continuing demand, but it's not huge. Right. So we have classes 3 times a year. They last Saturday and Sunday, 6 weekends. So people can have jobs, keep their lives, and train with us while they're gaining their new skills. I'm very proud about that. And that format works. But because of that format, we can also bring people in from a distance, an hour or so, who drive in. I've proven that over the years. But we're looking to bring, as you mentioned, the soft skills of what your humanity plays a role, significant role, but work ethic. If you can stick to the job, if you can come in and be open-minded to continue to learn, because there's never an end to the new concepts. But there's huge technology. Dentures are being 3D printed. That was the pipe dream back in my what? Press a button and they have a computer code in plastic and a denture comes up at the end. Oh. Lasers, scanning technology, AI. As you mentioned, we were together at the Chicago Midwinter. Mm-hmm. AI was about 30% of the booths at the second biggest national meeting in the calendar. Yeah. It's everywhere. But here's why it's important to the dental assisting world. You can be put in charge of that. You can be put in charge of operating, maintaining, updating, handle all of those types of technical, intentional processes that you'll save the doctor a whole bunch of time and gain trust for yourself within your job, build trust, build your skill sets. Dentistry and dental assisting in particular is far more than, as one of my students over the years have said, boy, there's a lot more to this than just suck and spit, huh?
Amen. Amen.
And that is a ton. And doors will open for you. So, Kevin, thank you again for the wonderful chance to talk. And I'm happy to be a resource for anybody who needs training and help out.
Hey, friends. I'm heading to Nashville this year to speak at Accelerate the Dental Revenue Workshop. This isn't just another event. It's packed with real strategies, real solutions, and the kind of insight that actually moves your practice forward. If you're ready to grow, lead, and finally make your systems work for you, grab your ticket. Use my code KevinH to save $150, and I'll see you in Music City.
Dental Assistant Nation listeners and viewers on YouTube, we're going to make sure that not only can you learn about Inflatrix and the website, it's going to be in the show notes, really easy for you to find and click on, as well as we're going to make sure that we put the link to what Dr. Thorson is doing there in Wyoming, so you can learn more about his program as well. And absolutely, I'll wave at you across state lines, and I'll say thanks so much for being on today, my friend. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be in Denver at the pediatric meeting too, later this month.
Oh, well, we need to talk about it. We will talk about that whenever we get done here. How about that?
Awesome. Thanks again, Kevin. Great to see you.
Absolutely. And thanks to all of you who've listened to this episode of Dental Assistant Nation. Love talking about what's going on out there in the industry that maybe you don't know about, or maybe it's just a good reminder of that building or smashing trust. That's something that's going to stick in my head moving forward, and I hope it does with yours as well. Till next time, it's Kevin Henry, founder of Dental Assistant Nation. So thankful you joined us, and as always, wishing you nothing but success ahead.